All righty. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome once again to another free CLE webinar brought to you by the AltaPro Risk Purchasing Group. And, let's just jump right into it. No one really likes to think about how or if your practice might end, but planning for it, it's not only the smart and prudent thing to do, it just flat out makes a lot of sense. So we are happy to help you with this process and bring you the one person that literally wrote the book on succession planning, and that being Camille Stell. Hi, Camille.
Hi.
Camille is the author of the highly regarded book entitled Designing a Succession Plan for Your Law Practice, a step-by-step guide for preparing your firm for maximum value. Camille also serves as president of Lawyers Mutual Consulting Services in North Carolina and is a frequent speaker on topics such as ethics, retirement, and succession planning. And if that doesn't keep her busy enough, she also serves on the North Carolina State Bar Regulatory Review Subcommittee and as a member of the North Carolina Pro Bono Resource Center Advisory Board and the advisory group for the Duke Law School Tech Lab. I don't know if you got any other time, Camille, but you're obviously pretty busy and really know your stuff. So we are really grateful to have you. Thank you. And hosting today's webinar is a familiar face, AltaPro's very own risk pro, Jay Reeves. Jay is also an attorney and the owner of the website, yourlawlife.com, which is a site dedicated to helping lawyers achieve work-life balance. You can also find Jay on the AltaPro RPG website. Just click on the Super J Risk Pro character and ask whatever question you have. All righty, let's get through the blocking and tackling so we can get on the important stuff. First and foremost, we are planning to give a book away, Camille's book, as a matter of fact. Then if you could get that up on the screen for me, that'd be great. One moment, please.
Thanks, Jay.
Technical there. Thank you, Jay. All right. So one moment, please. All righty. Well, looks like we're having some challenges with the slide advancing, so we're gonna wing it at this point. So we're planning to give here we go, at least 10 of these books away. And all you have to do is email info@altapro.rpg.com with the subject line "Give me the book," and we'll send you a free copy of Designing a Succession Plan. What we do need from you is your mailing address. In other words, where we can mail the book to. Okay, that's important. All right, so let's move on to the little blocking and tackling and housekeeping here. Ben, can you advance the slide? Thank you. All right, first and foremost, to download the manuscript of the webinar, go to altaprorpg.com, post webinar, and you can also check your chat box. We're going to have this there for you. This program has been approved for 1 hour of CLE. You must complete the survey to receive your credit. And by the way, please, if you could, be patient, allow for about up to 30 days for us to process this and get you the credit. If for some reason you need it sooner, then let us know and we will do everything we can to accommodate you. There's going to be 2 codes that we're going to send to you during the webinar just to make sure that you're still paying attention. So you'll need to remember those codes and you're going to ultimately input them into the survey that you're going to do at the end of the webinar. As many of you are probably familiar with this process. So keep an eye out in your chat box for those codes. You have to enter them to get the credit. In fact, the first one just came across right now. If you're participating via phone or maybe sharing a computer screen with someone else in your office, just email us at info@altaprorpg.com. and we'll send you a form that you need to fill out in order for us to get your free CLE. Now, also, we are going to do our best to try to maybe take some questions during the webinar, but if not, we're going to try to spend some time at the end answering any questions. In any event, please direct your questions to the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and we'll do everything we can to answer them. All righty. Well, I think that's all I got on my plate before I kick it over to Jay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Jay, if you would like to take it over from here, you all have a good time.
Thank you, Todd. Hello, everybody, and welcome to AltaPro CLE Live. My name is Jay Reeves, better known as the Risk Pro, This guy is the on-call risk management consultant for lawyers and firms insured through AltaPro services. Maybe you've got a question. What are some best practices for working remotely? How can I take good care of my clients during a pandemic? What's the capital of Slovenia? Well, for answers, just call AltaPro, and faster than you can say summary judgment, the Risk Pro will be there to help. By the way, the answer is Ljubljana. Say that 3 times fast. Before I go any further, let me thank you again, the attendees. We've got viewers, hundreds of viewers from Illinois to Indiana, from Wisconsin to Wendell, North Carolina. You're the reason these programs have been successful. And you're the reason we're able to attract such top guests like our guest today. Today's program is especially exciting for me personally, Success in Succession Planning, because I've found a common theme or scenario that runs through a lot of questions that I get as the Risk Pro. And that theme is that something has happened in the law firm. It might be something expected. A lawyer is retiring or phasing out. It might be unexpected. A lawyer dies, becomes disabled, or is disbarred, the deadly 3 Ds, or a natural disaster strikes, or key employees leave. What happens to your client in the event of something like that? What happens to the remaining lawyers and the employees of the firm? What happens to the lawyer's income stream and their family? Well, there's nobody better to answer those questions than our guest, the founder and CEO of Lawyers Mutual Consulting and Services, and one of the top succession planning experts in the country, Camille Stell. Camille, we're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Looking forward to talking to y'all.
And as you know, if we've prepared for these programs, these are interactive webinars. We like to bring our audience in on the conversation. So let's kick things off by asking our audience a question about succession planning as it applies to their practice. This is a 2-part question. First is, do you have a succession plan for your practice? And then, why do you think a plan is important? Check any of the boxes you think might apply. And Camille, while we're waiting for the results to come in, why don't you tell us what is a succession plan and why should we even be thinking about it?
So Jay, you know, there's so much in life that you can't control, right? Things just happen. But where we can, let's try to do so. And thinking about the end of your career with a succession plan puts you in control as much as possible of how you want to end your practice, when you want to end your practice, and what happens to your clients and the other folks in the office who are going to be impacted by those decisions. Interestingly, a Altman-Wiles study says that only 28% of law firms have a succession plan in place. So it'll be interesting to see what our folks here say, but that's a pretty small number. And it's also estimated that out of those with a succession plan, many of those are just a mandatory retirement date, not really a full-blown succession plan. So it looks like the numbers, are very similar and very close. Most people here on the call today don't have a plan. And it looks like it's important to those of you on the call to prepare for disaster, to plan on your own timeline and terms. Continuing your law firm legacy, I think, is so important. You built a business, a profession, a practice that has value, and you want to make it perhaps multi-generational to outlive you. And that's a great way for you to leave a legacy. So I think you're all here for the right reasons, and these are all things we're going to talk about through the program.
I find it interesting, Camille, that the results were almost exactly consistent with the Altman-Weil survey.
Yeah.
And it really struck me the idea of leaving a legacy of a reputational value. I was struck, you open your book by saying congratulations to someone who started a law firm or who is running a law firm, even if they didn't start it. Congratulations, you've done something pretty amazing and remarkable, because it's not easy to do that. You've invested your time in it, lots of money in it. And I guess one option is when you're ready to hang it up, or something terrible happens, then it just vanishes. It goes away too. But succession planning gives a little different option for protecting and preserving that.
Yeah. I think that was such a common, thing in the past, was to just retire almost as your clients begin to stop showing up, right? And then maybe some new lawyer moved into town, you sold them your office, you sold them your law books, and you sold them your grandfather's desk. And that's not the way that succession works today.
And another thing that struck me is I'm guessing there are a number of attorneys out there thinking, well, I'm not sure if this applies to me. I'm not planning on retiring. I'm still young. I love a story you tell in the book, and I think this was a firm you actually worked with, where it was a lawyer who had a couple of younger associates, and he was sort of thinking of retiring. But once he got into planning the succession of his firm, he says he became re-energized. In fact, I'm going to read a couple of his quotes. I'm feeling fulfilled as an attorney. I've been energized. I'm being carried forward in a meaningful way. I've found real joy. And instead of winding down, you say that he grew from 1 or 2 lawyers to 5 and expanded into another office. So succession is really about success as well, right? And it's about maximizing the value of your law firm.
That's right. And so for certain, you can decide the plan that works for you, but don't wind down and then think about, oh, now I want to sell my practice, or now I want to hire my successor, because you've already lost a lot of the value. And what this friend, now a friend after working together, said is, I didn't know what my plan was, and I had sort of started winding down, but through the opportunity to sell my practice, I realized I wanted to help build it back up to what it could be. And, he says his revenues are higher now than they've been in several years, with the addition of the new owners and the new energy. And he's feeling very fulfilled, but still has a plan and a timeline for, when he'll start his life after a living.
Exactly. And I'll bet the other lawyers in his firm are pretty excited too about seeing that they are now an integral part of the future of the firm, and they're not just a paid, salaried associate, right?
That's right.
And one thing that struck me is it's a good idea to have a plan, but you pointed out to me in an earlier discussion, there's some risk if you don't have one. Lawyers are running a risk if you don't have one. So tell us about some of the risks.
So I think that if you think that your clients aren't thinking about your retirement, you're wrong about that. Your clients are thinking about whether you're going to retire. And if you don't have a plan, they may go ahead and start leaving and looking for another lawyer. So you may lose clients and you may lose revenue. You may lose client goodwill because they think you don't have a plan. It will be hard for you to hire and keep lawyers. I talk to younger lawyers all the time who say, this lawyer hired me and said, I'm going to retire in 5 to 7 years, and I really want you to be here to take care of my client. It's been 10 years. I don't have a path. I don't have the client relationships I need, for this to be my firm one day. I'm afraid the clients are going to start leaving. So it's going to be hard for you to retain good talent. You may lose partners in the firm because they want to take their place as managing partner or leader of the firm. So all of these things that you might think you're really dealing with by just working, you're not. Not having a plan means that your clients are probably losing a little sleep at some point about what you're going to do. Jay, you're on mute.
Why, thank you, Camille. See, there's a risk right there. And
There you go.
you are the expert. One risk of not having a plan is you're not prepared. I remember back when I was practicing law, we had a little sign, have you done a will? Have you prepared your will? Something like that. Well, my guess is that most clients and prospects who came in the office weren't planning to die tomorrow or didn't even want to think about that. But we thought it was a good idea to remind them to be prepared. So it seems to me that a succession plan is sort of an equivalent of an estate plan for your practice or a will for your law practice.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly right.
And so that maybe we should follow the advice we give to our clients, which is to prepare for the unexpected and plan now for what may happen tomorrow. So you've made the case, we need a succession plan. And as you pointed out, some states have some ethical rules saying solos have to designate a successor, et cetera. And malpractice companies might ask you to designate a successor. That's one component of a plan, but that's certainly not a robust plan. So why don't we get into some of the options for succession planning?
Absolutely. So, the way I look at it, the first option is that there is no plan at all. And, that's also a common obstacle, Jay, is just finding the time to plan, finding the resources. I don't know how to create a plan. Nobody wants to talk about retirement. It's not retirement in our society sometimes is maybe looked down on, like, oh, I'm not vibrant and active anymore. I'm puttering around in retirement. So I think those are some of the common obstacles that we see. And I really want to help folks turn those into options for success, as you say, as part of succession. So I think there's a couple of options. The first is no plan. I'm going to work until someone closes it down for me. Or what I often hear is I'm going to die at my desk. And they don't say it in a joking way, unfortunately. They say it is, this is a viable option for me. So it's an option, but I think all of you who are participating today have taken that one off the table, and I'm happy about that. Another option is to just wind down your practice. And that is certainly an option that many people take. I talk with a lot of folks and hand them a checklist, and they wind down their practice. That's the sort of thing you might think about doing, this time of the year, right? It's the fall of the year. Do I really want to do this next year? My caseload is so little anymore. I'm going to wind down my practice. I won't take any more clients after this year. I'll do my taxes next year and we'll call it a career. But what I really spend time doing is figuring out how to hire a successor, how to sell my practice, or how to move my practice to another firm and go with counsel. And what I would say to people who are thinking about hiring a successor, that's my friend David, who was in the book, Jay, that you read from. David wanted to hire a successor. And he had the same complaint that a lot of lawyers have, which is, I can't keep associates. They'll stay for a couple of years. They'll take everything I've taught them, and then they go hang their own shingle, or they'll go somewhere and make more money. And what I really want you to understand is it's different hiring a successor than hiring an associate. Hiring your successor means from the beginning, having conversations about what your succession plan is and how they fit into it. And that's why, one of the scenarios in the book is, the grouchy senior partner who's ready to throw his hands up one day and kind of walks into the break room and barks at the two young associates, "Do you want to buy my practice?" And they're shocked and stunned, and all they wanted was a cup of coffee. That's it. "I just want my cup of coffee." And so they all sort of slink out with no words. And, later one comes back and says, "I've been meaning to talk to you about this. My wife and I are starting our family. I think it's probably time for me to, look for another position that doesn't require as much as, being an owner of a law firm. So, thanks, but no thanks." The other associate comes in and says, "I've never been interested in owning a law firm. That's why I came to work for you. You never talked about ownership for anybody else." So that's a different process, right? Just hiring associates who think they're going to be there for a couple of years. You want to hire somebody, and maybe even at the very beginning, you offer them ownership opportunities. And I'm not talking about bringing somebody in as a 50-50 owner. Offer them a 5% ownership interest. Offer them a non-equity position for a year, and then the opportunity to start buying in small increments. A lot of solo and smalls sort of think it's all or nothing. And I think that that's not true. I think it's definitely an option for you to find a successor who won't leave you in a couple of years. You just got to go about it a little bit different. And then, I'm sorry, Jay, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's a great point. And these are crucial conversations, important conversations, probably some that lawyers don't even think about all the time. It may be difficult to have important conversations. Let's put the audience into this conversation by asking another question concerning options. This is actually more to the obstacles. I don't have a succession plan because we've talked about some of these things. While we're waiting for the results to come in, Camille, finish talking about finding a successor, giving them some skin in the game, because that's going to be a different associate than somebody who's just getting paid, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that really fits with all of these points on this polling question, right? I'm not having luck hiring my successor because I'm too busy running my practice to think about it in those terms. I don't know who a good successor would be. I need to keep working. I can't really think about bringing someone in and turning things over to them because I need to earn the income for myself. So all of these obstacles are things you can start working on if you think about hiring a successor, because you can bring in someone to test and see if they're a good fit for your client. You can, if you sell them 5% and it doesn't work out, you can buy them out, right? Give them the 5% back. But going through the due diligence, you should be able to find someone that way. So here, your most popular answer is, I don't know anyone who would be a good successor. And, one of the reasons, Jay, that I really got interested in this is because there's so many young lawyers who are really struggling to find their footing. There's so many senior lawyers who say, gosh, I just don't know who would be a good successor. I felt like these were the conversations where we could bring these people together. I think there are more people out there who are looking for this kind of opportunity than you know about. And, you can do it on your own. You can find your successor. The book has lots of, maybe tips and ideas about that. I can share some thoughts and ideas with you. Or you can bring in someone to help you find a successor. But I think there are more of them out there than you are aware of. Younger lawyers, and yes, you can't hire them today and retire tomorrow and expect your clients to get the same level of service. That's why these are things that take time. Optimally, you would want to spend at least 18 to 24 months with your successor. So, you don't want to decide that on the eve of your retirement, right? That's why you need these plans in place before, because our numbers, Jay, are showing us that it takes about 12 to 18 months to sell a practice, and that an optimum transition period is 18 to 24 months. So now you're looking at a little over 3 years. So you need time to have these kinds of plans.
Great points. On the topic of a successor, perhaps some of our lawyers in the audience are having trouble finding a good successor because they're not sure what makes a good successor. What would make one? How do I groom a good successor? In your book, you have at the end of each chapter, not to keep plugging the book, but one of my favorite parts of the book, you have conversation starters where you suggest ways to open a conversation with maybe not even an associate, but someone you're interviewing for an associate's job of, what are you looking for? Are you looking for just a gig, for a year or two? Or are you looking for something more long-term and to maybe have more of a stake in this practice?
Yes. I found the conversations, I wrote the conversation starters because lawyers would say to me, what do I say? What do I say to my young associate? How do I ask them these questions? So I'm a fan of scripts and conversation starters because they help you get your thoughts together. They help you anticipate the challenges and the questions that the person you're talking to is going to have, so you're prepared to answer them. But finding young people today with an entrepreneurial mindset, it is pretty common. Young folks today, Jay, they like to build things. They like to be, they like to have purpose, mission, and passion. And a lot of lawyers think no one is going to work as hard for my firm as I am. I built it. No one will work that hard. And I think you're right if you're just offering them a job and they just, they are supposed to show up from 9 to 5 and do something. But if you give them the opportunity to be a part of your mission, and if you share your values with them and you engage them with your clients in a way that's not task oriented, go do this discovery response for me, but it's building relationship oriented, come have lunch with me and my client and learn about their business and what keeps them awake at night. That is what your future successor is going to get excited about.
Great points. And Camille, none of this is really exotic. The rules of professional conduct say that lawyers have a responsibility to supervise, educate the other lawyers in the firm. So what better way than to groom them to perhaps take over the reins down the road? Let's move to selling your practice. My guess is some lawyers might think, what, I can sell my practice? Or is it even possible? Tell us a little bit about selling a law practice.
Yeah. So Ben, if you would back up one slide just for another minute, because I before we talk about valuing the practice, Jay, I do want to mention the other option of selling my practice and moving my practice and sort of how they work together. And then I want to spend a few minutes talking about how you value a law firm. So there's an ABA model rule 1.17 that says you can sell your practice. Most states have adopted it. The states that haven't, they still don't have anything in place that says you can't do it. They just don't have an affirmative rule. So it is an ethical thing to do. Business wise, how do you do it, right? How do you sell your practice? You can sell, your practice has value beyond you. That's the thing that trips up most lawyers. They think, well, when I'm gone, That's the practice, Camille. So what is it to sell? You're selling your reputation, your contacts, your network of referral sources, your location beside the courthouse, your website, your client list, your work on the shelf, I think I've mentioned, but your referral sources, right? And it's not transactional, Jay. It's not you put those things in a box and you hand them to someone, because that sounds cold and clinical. What do you mean I'm selling my reputation? No. What I mean is, as you bring the seller, the buyer in, you are engaging them in your relationships. You are helping them work up to your brand, the reputation that you have. You're introducing them to clients with work in progress, so they'll continue to send you work. So selling the practice may sound cold and clinical. There is a process. It does have some clinical aspects to it. It's an engagement, right? There's a due diligence period. There's a letter of intent. There's a purchase agreement. It is a transaction, but a lot of what goes along with selling a practice is relationship building and transitioning client relationships, management responsibilities, and law firm leadership. And then I'm going to talk about this last option, moving my practice to another firm. So as I have seen in the process of buying and selling law firms, there are law firms out there who are often interested in expanding their practice into a new geographic area. They're interested in expanding their skill sets. We want to buy an estate practice to add to our family law firm, or they're looking to increase their revenue. And so buying a practice will enable them to do that. So sometimes your buyer is not a younger lawyer who's looking to take over your practice, but it's a more established firm. So somebody who's already there, and that helps as you move into the off-counsel relationship. You're able to transition out of those daily management responsibilities. They are going to bear that burden, and your job is to transition client relationships. So that's sort of what I see as options for succession. And Jay, we can go to the next slide if you want, and please have some follow-up comments before I start talking about valuation.
Well, my only follow-up comment is I love that you use the word transition, because what I'm picking up, you're the expert, not me. What I'm picking up is this is as much about transition as it is, retiring or even selling per se. It's about transitioning your practice to a different place. And as the risk pro, I would caution you, selling your practice doesn't mean just putting a for sale sign out in the lobby. First, take a look at Rule 1.7 or whatever the corresponding rule is in your state, and make sure you know the ethical guardrails for doing something like that. So sure. As we're transitioning, sale, maybe even buying a practice, how do you go about valuing a law firm?
Yeah. So again, the lawyers say, what do I have of value to sell, right? If the lawyers don't want my law books, which are not that helpful anymore, what is it I have to sell? Well, that's how you figure out the value of the practice, right? And all the components. So you may have a building, you may lease space, you may own your building, you may have a website, phone number, but again, they're these intangibles that are your brand, your reputation, your referral source, your networks, etc. So when you think about how to value it, this is sort of a combination. It's a little bit different than going to the blue book and finding the value on my car and then listing my car for that price. But in some ways, Jay, it's not entirely different. What you're trying to do primarily is look at past performance to determine future income. you want to think that typically what we've made in the past will make in the future, and that's part of the value that someone is buying, right? So if you step away and you've made money in the past, if someone steps into the role, the hope is they'll make money in the future. So what's a rule of thumb valuation on a practice? Depending on, and this is such a lawyer answer, Jay, it depends, but it depends on a lot of things. Area of practice, geography, are you rural or urban? Do you have a consumer-based practice or a business practice? Do you have a lot of repeat customers? So all of those things go into it. But when you look at the rule of thumb for revenue, what you can say is a practice might sell for 0.5 up to 1.5 of your past revenue. So, if your firm made $500,000 last year, you could sell the firm for half of that to 1.5 times that. Now, a true valuation is going to look at 3 to 5 years of financials, particularly during the pandemic. Some folks may have had these really crazy fluctuations in the past year and a half. So, you're going to go back, but to look at a value of 0.5 to 1.5 of your revenues, or 2 to 3 times your net earnings. So that's your revenues less your expenses. So 2 to 3 times your net earnings. So that's a number that we look at. Next is a market comparison. This is akin to a home sale. If I'm trying to sell my house, it is likely that my house will sell for the price, a similar price to the house beside me, all things being equal. Now, if we've both lived in our house for 30 years, but they did the fantastic kitchen remodel, and they've got the quartz kitchen countertops, and they've got the beautiful archway door, mine is not going to be comparable, right? Mine's going to value a little less. So market comparison. The problem with market comparisons is it's not as open as the housing market, right? So I can go to Zillow and I can find out how much houses are selling for. Can't really do that with law firms, but there are some law firm brokers that are doing specific law firm transactions, and so they do have a database. I would recommend you look at the Law Practice Exchange, the Law LAW Practice Exchange. Tomlin Festi is the co-author of the book on succession planning. Tom's a lawyer, a CPA, and a business broker. And so he's had 8 years or so of experience in buying and selling law firms. So he definitely has ideas on how market comparisons, work, because he's sold other practices. And there are other brokers out there as well. What are key value drivers? Key value drivers are things like your technology being up to date, having a robust website that drives business to the practice, having a great support team, strong paralegals, folks who really want to engage and, work hard. So all of these things are key value drivers. They can make they make the value of your practice go up. So if you're selling not only your practice, but the 2 paralegals who've worked there for 10 years, that'll make your value go up. And then lastly, what are adjustments? These are things like if you own the building and you pay yourself above average rent, rent typically would be $1,500 in your area, and you charge $3,000, to yourself. That's an adjustment you would have to make. If you pay yourself a below average salary, let's say you don't pay yourself much of a salary, you just take all the proceeds on the back end, an owner coming in will want to draw a decent salary, right? So there'll have to be an adjustment. So Jay, all of those things factor in together to come up with a valuation number that you can offer to a buyer.
Very, very helpful. While you were talking, we had a question come in about value, and the questioner said, the only thing I have of value is my phone number that I've been using for 30 years. Well, I bet you would tell this lawyer, there's probably more value than you think, but the phone number itself that's an asset, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then
Please
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
My other takeaway from your discussion of value is when you said past performance, and really present performance determines value. That's really an encouragement to keep working, keep doing what you're doing, take good care of your clients, run a great law firm. Sounds like good advice, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's why you want to do succession planning so far in advance. You know, you winding down a practice, that you can do that in 3 or 4 months, you know, depending on your client load. But having a true succession plan is something that takes time and effort. It's like anything else of value, right? It's you're going to get out of it what you put in it. So keeping that practice robust while you make your succession plan will allow you to get a maximum value from it.
Let's move to the next slide and talk a little bit about how you go about creating a plan, and then we'll get to what comes when the plan is in place. So talk to us about creating a plan, Camille.
Yeah, so, you know, I look at sort of your search for a successor is a component of your plan. So let's say you want to do all of this yourself. And I love a good do-it-yourself project. So I think that's great. When you think about a successor, what do you need to think about? What do you have that they need? You know, is it your trial skills? Is it your negotiation skills? Is it your ability to manage the difficult emotions that that folks in a divorce proceeding are going through? So you want to look for a successor that has those skills, or that you can help them grow and develop those skills. You know, for instance, if you're a 30-year trial lawyer, you can't sell your practice to a 2-year trial lawyer and expect them to see the same value that you did. You're going to have to be willing to nurture them, train them, teach them, or you're going to need to find a buyer with 15 years of trial experience. So think about the person and the skills that they would need. How about handing off client relationships? You know, I think the way you do that, it's a delicate balance. You can't tell your clients tomorrow that you're retiring in 5 years. They might not want to go through the hassle. They might go find somebody else. They might look at this as an opportunity to try something new. So you really have to balance what your time frame is with when you share the news with everyone, including clients. But what you want to do is bring in people and then help them build those relationships with your clients. Don't just hand off work and be task oriented, but take them to meet the clients, introduce them to the clients. And obviously this is different for different kinds of practice, right? If you've got a street practice where people walk in off the street and hire you to go to the courthouse and represent them, I'm not talking about that kind of taking those clients to lunch, but that's where you're going to take other lawyers to lunch and other referral sources and build those relationships. How do you transition out of your cases? I'll tell you the hardest practices for lawyers to transition out of, in my experience, is litigation. Because as long as you take cases, you're extending your retirement by years, right? Because they don't go away. And what every retiring lawyer says to me is, oh, Camille, that case is too good to pass up. I know I told you I wasn't going to take any more cases this year, but this is the one. This is the case that's going to put me on the map, or the crown, you know, the crown jewel to my career. So that's a hard thing to do, but you have to set a hard stop date on when you're going to start taking litigation matters, you know, and winding those down. And then inventory your management responsibilities so that the incoming buyer knows what has to be done. You know, here's all the service contracts. You know, we lease our copy machine. The lease is up next year. The lease on the building is up in 18 months. You need to be thinking about where you want to be. Do you want to move to a new space? Do you want to go to a co-working environment? So think about the management. I like a spreadsheet, Jay, just a simple spreadsheet to list out management responsibilities and set it up as a calendar. Like, these are the things we do in January. These are the things we do in, you know, tax season. These are the things we do budgeting at the end of the year. And the more care you can have around process and procedure, documentation, the better off you are.
Well, our last webinar a couple of months ago was on some important D's, the letter D of running a law practice, and one was documentation. We talked mostly in that webinar about client matters, but important to document your succession plans too, and have a procedure in place to get from here to there.
Yeah. I mean, the hard thing for a buyer is that so much of your practice is in your head, and the buyer is, how do they get that out of there? Part of it is they're going to go to lunch with you, and they're going to sit in your office with you. They're going to observe you working. They're going to hear your interactions with clients and staff. So there will be some osmosis that will happen, but process and procedure is a, you know, it's easier if you've got a you know, procedures manual. But honestly, most of us don't take the time to do those sorts of things. And that's why you've got to count on a transition period. But if you happen to be a firm that does have a lot of, you know, heavy documentation, that's great. That's a real plus.
We had one question, Camille, before we move to the final topic, a question on marketplace for buying and selling law practices. There are resources out there. There are websites. You mentioned one that's one of the biggest in the country is the Law Practice Exchange. You can go there and see what firms, I think, are listed. Isn't that what's on there? And
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So the website is the Law Practice Exchange, and you can go to the website and visit as a potential buyer, as a potential seller, you know, see what they have there. You'll see that they offer brief descriptions of practices. So if you were a buyer and you went and looked, you might see, you know, Southern California insurance defense law, right? It's anonymous. Before names and firm information is exchanged, non-disclosure agreements have to be signed. So it's generic to some degree, because if Jay, where I am in North Carolina, if they said Wendell, North Carolina, I think there's 2 law firms here. So not hard to figure out whose practice is for sale. So, you know, there's some confidentialities around there, and so need for non-disclosure agreements. But yeah, check out the Law Practice Exchange, and you can kind of see how it looks for somebody who's thinking about buying a practice or putting your practice there for sale.
Right. And I was struck by a comment you made, and then we'll transition to the final topic. A comment you made about many lawyers say, well, I am my practice. When I'm not here, my practice isn't here. It has no value if I am not here. That's certainly true in North Carolina, where most firms are small firms, 1, 2
That's
lawyer
right.
firms, 3 lawyer firms. Alta Pro mostly insures 1, 2, 3 lawyer firms. But if there's one takeaway that I've gotten from you, is even if it's a solo firm that's pretty specialized in a small town, you don't know what's out there. You don't know who may be looking to step into something like that and to carry on your practice.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, my friend David, who wrote the, I call him my friend. He was a valued client. I have a lot of respect for him. I don't mean he's my best friend, and that's why he wrote the intro to my book. But he wrote the intro to the book, I think, because he genuinely felt like this process had been helpful for him. But he is in a small town in North Carolina, and he was a one lawyer guy, and was able to sell the practice. So it can happen. I think people do think, oh, that might work for somebody else, but not for me. But you don't know until you try it.
well, let's move to part 3, which is life after law. Something we might not even imagine that there is life after law. I know this is an area that you personally enjoy working with lawyers, Camille, on life after law. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out there.
Jay, I think it's interesting. That's part of the work you do as well, right? While it's called your law life, I bet you talk to a lot of lawyers who are thinking about how to transition from their law life to their life after law. So I bet you've got some thoughts to share as well. But as a lawyer, often your personality and your profession are so closely intertwined. It's hard to think about stepping away. And the transition is harder if there's nothing that you're moving towards. And so, I encourage people to think about doing things like taking a sabbatical and see how you do with short periods of time that are away from the office. I encourage people to, oh, thanks, Jay, you put up another polling question. So I'd love to hear what everybody says about the polling question and what you think about life after law. But taking a sabbatical, taking a staycation. Have you ever just taken a week off to stay at your house? No trip, no getting on an airplane, no going somewhere fun, but just what is it like to be in your home and to figure out, do I need to get up at the same time every day? Can I sleep in? Do I want to, exercise this afternoon or go visit the grandkids? These are ways to start stepping into what retirement looks like. But also, there are so many things that you can do in your second act that don't look like lounging by the pool. That's fun, and I hope that you do some of that. But you can do pro bono work. You can teach at a law school or paralegal school, or tutor high school kids, or become a consultant, or write legal articles, or serve on community boards, or serve as a board member on a board of directors. So, Jay, I love that. So
Look at that.
your people said, I get excited thinking about what comes next. That makes me really happy.
That is very encouraging, very encouraging. Of course, maybe that means they hate what they're doing so much now that, anything is going to be better than this. I love the way you framed it, though. It's always easier, and this is true with every part of life. It's always easier if we're moving towards something. Mm-hmm. Because many clients I work with, and I bet you do too, Camille, they get afraid, they get tense about losing something. I've got to give this up. I got to, and I remember I worked with a client, one of the first clients I had, I said, what would you do if you weren't practicing law? And he said, I have no idea. And I thought, wow, first of all, that's probably not exceptional, but that's kind of a sad commentary, you know, because it's possible you may not be practicing tomorrow, events out of your control or whatever. But as you pointed out, you want it to be within your control. I'm going to leave on my terms with my plan in place when I want to. And life after law can be so exciting.
Yeah, agree.
And it doesn't have, another final thing, a law degree is so portable. You mentioned you can teach, you can mentor, of counsel, pro bono, very, very, very portable. So your skill set will follow you.
Exactly. These are questions that I think you should consider as you begin to think. And I would say the first, one of your concerns on that you just said on your poll is you don't know if you're financially ready to retire. That's what I would do if I left here today. I would go find a financial advisor and I would ask them to help me get ready for retirement. And Jay, I did that 5 years ago and I said, I want a number, I want a dollar number, and I want an age. And I don't have to stick to it, but I want to set those things in place. And I don't know how to do that on my own. And I met with a great financial advisor. I meet them every year. They tell me how close I am to goal, what I need to be doing differently, how I need to adjust my goal. If I were you and I had one thing, time for one thing today, I'd meet with a financial advisor and see how you're getting yourself financially ready. And then I'd begin to answer some of these other questions. And Jay, I would read the book too. I'm just throwing that out there if you're one of the ones that gets it for free, right?
Well, it's a great resource. And you also work with the state bar, not work for the state bar, but you serve on various committees and you have for many years. So you understand that this is just not a commodity. There are ethical considerations. There are lots of considerations that go into it. So the book is a fabulous resource. Any closing comments? We're close to the end of our time, Camille. Any thoughts you want to leave our viewers?
I am happy to answer questions if you have them. I know Alta Pro will be sharing the slide deck with you. Feel free to visit my website, Lawyers Mutual Consulting and Services, or lawyersmutualconsulting.com. And you'll find more articles and conversation around succession planning.
Thank you very, very, very much.
I
And sometimes it
enjoyed
helps.
talking with you.
Yeah, and sometimes it helps just to talk through these things, to have somebody to talk about your life after law or life in law with.
Exactly.
Talking helps. So with that, thank you so much, Camille. Thank you all. And we're going to kick it back over to Todd now to close us out.
Time to close out, folks. So first and foremost, what do you need to do to get your CLE credit? If you need to fill out the survey that you can get to at the RPG post-webinar website, you can complete that anytime. Make sure you put in the 2 code words in the survey, Alta and Pro. If you did not write them down, this is your last chance. Do a screenshot, whatever it takes. And we'll get you the CLE accreditation within 30 days. And if you need it sooner, as I mentioned earlier, just let us know. So before I let Camille and Jay leave, I want to thank you both. I think everybody on this in this webinar would agree that you provided really powerful, timely, and extremely relevant information. So can't thank you enough. Again, thank you. We also want to extend a big thank you to all the participants and hope, honestly, that you found this a worthwhile and valuable use of your time. In addition to any policy that you might have with us, the goal of the Alta Pro Risk Purchasing Group is really to deliver high quality, high value information on important topics in the legal profession, all of which are designed to help you run your business better, along with managing and reducing risk. So thanks again for taking time out of your day for us. And last note, keep an eye out for our holiday CLE webinar. It'll be the last free CLE webinar of the year for us in December. It'll be focused on wellness. Some of you may recall that's what we did last year during the holiday season, and it was very, very well received. In fact, we're going to feature Michael Kahn, who was our featured speaker last year in a similar CLE webinar. So keep an eye out for the invitations. You'll be getting those in a few weeks. And with that, Jay, unless you have anything else, Camille, anything else?
There was a question about file retention. That should definitely be part of your succession plan, because most buyers are not going to want to take over your back room that's full of old files. So coming up with a plan for file retention is important. And I bet Alta Pro has some thoughts they can share with you on that as well. So I think that's the last one I would have.
Okay. Well, as you all know, that you can reach out to Camille directly at the information we forwarded to you. If you need that again, just let us know. And with that, you know, we'll just wish everybody on the call to have a great week ahead. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
All right.
It was lots of fun.
Yeah. Bye.